Ma'am, give me back my baby's oxygen tank. No. Federal policy. You can't board with this. That tank keeps him breathing. The jet bridge hums with boarding chatter, rolling suitcases, the beep of scanners, the dry whisper of filtered air. Beneath the overhead fluorescence, Evelyn Brooks clutches her son against her chest. Baby Noah's breaths are thin, shallow, fluttering like paper in a breeze. His pediatric oxygen tank, small, silver, neatly tagged by the pediatric unit that morning, rests in her hand. The flight attendant, Paige Carter, blocks the jet bridge door with both arms. Her badge glints. Her voice is calm, but hard. You'll have to surrender the device. Checked luggage only. If it's certified, which I doubt. Evelyn shakes, not from anger, but from fear. Noah's lips are tinged with blue. She has a doctor's note folded in her diaper bag. She tries to speak, but her voice trembles into a whisper. He needs it every 10 minutes. Please. Paige holds out an empty hand. Waiting. Expecting. Passengers pause, unsure. A man in a baseball cap looks away. A couple whispers but keeps walking to their seats. The world moves while one mother stands frozen. Evelyn's heartbeat drums in her ears. She pulls the note creased and signed, medical clearance, the approved equipment. She offers it, but Paige doesn't look. I don't take papers from passengers. Company rules. But she doesn't even read it. A tear slips down Evelyn's cheek. Security announcement echoes overhead. Final boarding call. Flight 2187. Doors closing in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Noah gives a shallow gasp. His mother reaches to reconnect the tubing, but Paige moves first. Quick, efficient, and the oxygen tank slips into her grip like something stolen. The infant whimpers, voice tiny, air fading. Evelyn's breath breaks. Please don't do this. I'm begging you. Paige turns, oxygen tank tucked under her arm like lost property. You want to fly. Board without the equipment. That's the rule. Something inside Evelyn snaps, not angry, but steady. She pulls out her phone. Her thumb hovers. She taps record. Passengers watch now. One woman steps closer. Two more slow their walk. Silence spreads like frost. Noah, Evelyn whispers, voice trembling, hold on for me. And halfway down the aisle, completely unaware she has made the gravest mistake of her career, Paige Carter lifts the oxygen tank toward a storage compartment, and a tall man in a gray suit steps on board behind her. He sees the tank. He sees the baby turning pale. And he says 5 words that stop the plane cold. Evelyn Brooks. What's happening here? Enjoying this? Tap subscribe for tomorrow's story. 6 hours earlier, the morning light over Dallas was soft and hazy, slipping through the thin curtains of a small apartment near Fair Park. Evelyn Brooks stood at the sink, rinsing out a tiny bottle with practiced hands. Her back ached from another night of half-sleep, listening to her baby's breaths. She kept glancing over her shoulder at the portable monitor on the table, watching the green light blink. On the couch, her mother, Lillian, folded a baby blanket, slow and careful. You don't have to do this today, Evie, Lillian murmured. He just got out of the hospital. Evelyn dried the bottle, set it beside the others, and reached for the diaper bag already half-packed. The specialist is in Charlotte, Mom. They said this week or wait 3 months. 3 months is too long for his lungs. She crossed the room, kissed the top of Noah's head. He stirred, tiny chest rising and falling under the print onesie. That fragile movement steadied her and terrified her at the same time. Lillian watched her daughter's face. You still could drive. Take 2 days. No airports. No strangers. Evelyn shook her head. I don't have 2 days. They're cutting hours at the clinic. If I miss more time, my job is gone. She didn't have to say the rest. No job, no insurance. No expensive specialist. No backup plan. On the table lay a neat stack of documents. Pediatric discharge papers, the doctor's note clearing Noah for air travel, the equipment authorization, and a printed email from the airline's special assistance department confirming his needs had been noted on the reservation. Evelyn smoothed the email with her fingers. The black ink words looked so official, so solid. They wrote it down, Mom. They promised. Lillian's voice was soft. Papers promise. People decide. The room's small clock clicked toward 8 a.m. With each tick, the day narrowed. Evelyn swallowed, lifted Noah with both arms, and felt his warm weight settle against her. He made a tiny sound, halfway between a sigh and a question. "I'm going to get you there," she whispered into his hair. "I don't care what it takes." Dallas-Fort Worth International buzzed with its usual rhythm, rolling luggage, overhead announcements, the distant whine of jet engines. Evelyn parked in long-term, balanced the folded stroller on one hip, diaper bag on the other, and carried Noah in a soft carrier against her chest. By the ticket counter, she took a careful breath. This was the part that scared her almost as much as the flight itself, explaining, hoping someone would listen. The customer service agent, a man with tired eyes and a polite smile, glanced at her documents. "Okay, Ms. Brooks, I see the medical note here." He typed quickly. "We have your special assistance request in the system." Evelyn felt a flutter of relief. "So, it's okay for him to have what he needs on board. As long as it's approved equipment and portable." "Yes," he said. "You may be asked to show the paperwork again at the gate." She nodded. She could do that. She had everything labeled. She had come early. She had done all the right things. Still, as she walked toward security, she adjusted Noah's carrier and tucked his small hand under the blanket. The line moved in inches. A baby fussed somewhere behind her. Someone's phone buzzed with a work call. In the distance, baggage carts beeped as they reversed. When it was her turn, the TSA officer looked at her items, then back at Noah, whose breathing was soft and steady. "Ma'am, you can step over here," he said. "We'll screen this manually." His tone was neutral, almost kind. He ran a swab, glanced at the doctor's note, and nodded. "You're good to go." Evelyn exhaled. One hurdle down. She reached the gate nearly an hour early. The sign above read, "Flight 2187 Dallas to Charlotte on time." The words glowed in calm blue letters, as if nothing in the world could go wrong. She checked in with a gate agent, who scanned her boarding pass. "Pre-board for medical needs starts in about 20 minutes, Ms. Brooks. We'll call you." "Thank you," Evelyn said. She stepped aside and sat near the window, watching jets taxi on the tarmac. Their painted tails lined up like silent promises. She gently touched the stack of papers in her bag again, as if making sure they were still there. Far across the terminal, a different agent was handing a boarding sheet to a flight attendant starting her shift. "Morning, Paige. Full flight today. Couple of special requests in the notes." Paige Carter took the papers, glanced down for a split second, then folded them carelessly into her binder, without reading the details. Pre-boarding was called at 11:05 a.m. Evelyn gathered her things with careful efficiency. Oxygen tank secured. Tubing coiled neatly. Bag over her shoulder. Noah slept in his carrier, small hands curled like folded petals. The gate agent smiled again, pleasant, practiced. "If you need help settling in, just let the crew know." Evelyn thanked her, stepped down a jet bridge, and felt a distant hope blooming. Maybe this would be fine. Maybe people would understand. Inside the plane, cool air flowed from overhead vents. Seats waited in long, quiet rows. Evelyn took her pre-board time as a gift. No rush, no eyes impatient behind her. She placed the oxygen tank under seat 18A, reachable but secure, just as hospital staff instructed. She fastened Noah's strap so he'd rest partly upright, easier for breathing. A blonde flight attendant, Paige, watched her, one eyebrow lifted. She offered no greeting. Evelyn smiled gently anyway. "Good morning. I have clearance for medical equipment." "Doctor's note, authorization. I'll check it when we're airborne," Paige said lightly, glancing at her watch. "Passengers shouldn't unpack gear early. It blocks access." Evelyn hesitated. "He'll need it before takeoff. Just every few minutes." Paige's smile was thin. "We'll cross that bridge when we get there." Passengers began to stream in. The aisle filled with overhead bin latches, rustling coats, murmured seat numbers. Evelyn waited quiet, hoping she misread the tone. Hope was a fragile thing, but she clung to it. Across the aisle, a middle-aged man, Robert Mason, slid into his seat. "First time flying with a little guy?" he asked. Evelyn nodded. "First time flying with medical equipment, too." Robert's eyes softened. "You're doing great." "I raised twins. We all learn as we go." Her throat tightened in gratitude. A kind word can feel like shelter. Still, every few breaths, she glanced toward the front where Paige stood greeting passengers. Bright smile for some, clipped nod for others. The binder under Paige's arm bulged with printed papers, folded notes, bright tags. Evelyn wondered, did her clearance sit in there unseen? 30 minutes later, boarding approached completion. The captain's voice came overhead, warm and professional. Welcome aboard. Our flight time to Charlotte is 1 hour 45. Weather is clear. Robert leaned closer. If you need a hand, just say. Evelyn nodded, grateful. Then Paige returned. Clipboard tucked high. Chin lifted, like someone bracing for dispute. Ma'am, medical tanks must be certified. I don't see documentation in our system. Evelyn's heart tripped. I emailed everything last week. Here. She reached for her bag. Papers rustled like brittle leaves. This one shows approval. This equipment spec sheet, this. Paige didn't look. Passengers can print anything off the internet, she said, voice low enough not to carry far. I need internal confirmation, not papers you hand me. Evelyn felt the cabin tighten around her. The hum of vents, the rustle of jackets, Noah's soft coo. Please, she said, steady, controlled. Just read them. Paige lifted the oxygen tank with one hand. The ease of it chilled Evelyn. Noah stirred, sensing tension. I'll store this until we verify, Paige said. Evelyn stood, alarm ringing through her blood. He needs it. Paige stepped back firm. You're blocking the aisle. Sit down or deplane. Noah's breaths hitched, light and uneven. Evelyn's world narrowed to the small face before her, the tiny rise and fall, the soft flutter of lashes. She felt the fear crawl into her chest and lodge there. Robert shifted in his seat. Others watched now. Not loudly, not intervening. Just watching. Evelyn's throat tightened, yet she sat, one hand on Noah, one clutching the stack of ignored papers as Paige walked down the aisle with the oxygen tank, toward the overhead, away from the infant who depended on it. The door of the aircraft remained open. Pre-flight checks still underway. But the moment hung like a storm on the edge of breaking. One wrong word, one missed breath, and everything would change. The cabin fell into a quiet that was not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet where every held breath scraped like sand. Paige carried the oxygen tank forward. Noah's chest rose shallowly, as if drawing air through a narrow straw. Evelyn tried to follow, but the seatbelt sign blinked on with a soft chime. The wrong timing, the worst timing. She unbuckled anyway. Robert reached out gently, voice low. Ma'am rules. I know, Evelyn whispered, but he's fading. Her feet moved before her fear could stop them. Halfway up the aisle, she stopped. Paige had reached the galley, speaking with another attendant, Jack Whitman. He was older, gray-threaded hair, steady posture. His brow furrowed at the tank, then at Paige's tone, then at Evelyn approaching. Excuse me, Evelyn said, voice steady but frayed. He needs that oxygen every few minutes. I have documentation. Please look at it. Paige lifted her chin. We do not take medical equipment without verification. Jack's eyes softened. Let's just review the paperwork. Paige's response came quick. We cannot hold up departure over paperwork that should have been handled before boarding. Evelyn's hope flickered. It was. I have emails. Confirmations. Please, just read. She handed Jack the papers. Her hands trembled, but she kept them extended. Jack took the top sheet, doctor's signature, authorization for portable oxygen, medical stamp crusted in blue ink. His eyes scanned it, calm, thoughtful. Paige's voice sharpened. Jack, company policy. Policy also protects medical passengers, Jack replied gently. Let me confirm with the captain. Paige's expression cooled, controlled, professional, but something darker threaded beneath. Noah made a sound, thin, wavering. Evelyn turned. His lips looked paler than 10 minutes before. The sound punched through her. She reached for the mask, her hand empty. She needed the tank. Jack lifted the papers again, brow knit in careful consideration. But Paige moved faster. She took the paperwork from his hand, crisp motion like a page torn from a book. She flipped through it with only a glance, barely scanning, then folded the stack in half and returned it. Unverified, she said quietly. Remove passenger if unsafe to fly. The words struck like cold water. Jack hesitated. Torn voice, torn duty. I'll speak to the captain. Give me 1 minute. 1 minute. Evelyn watched him walk away. 1 minute too long for a baby losing breath. She hurried back to her seat, Noah's eyes half-lidded, chest fluttering. The hum of the cabin grew louder, sharper. Every second stretched thin, trembling. Then, a phone camera clicked nearby. A passenger in row 17, a woman with silver hair and sharp jawline, whispered to her husband, "That baby's turning blue." Another voice from row 20, deeper, uneasy, "This doesn't look right. Shouldn't the crew help?" I shifted. Murmurs rippled. Evelyn felt her throat tighten, fear, but also something fierce rising beneath it. She lifted Noah into her arms, rocked him gently, whispering his name like a promise. But his breathing stayed thin, uncertain. That was when Paige returned down the aisle. Oxygen tank held at her side like checked luggage. "Ma'am," she said, calm as winter, "I need you to surrender this equipment or deplane. Final request." Evelyn rose again, quiet, contained. "No. My son needs it." Passengers watched. Witnesses now, not bystanders. One man stood, not loudly, but firmly. "Let her keep it." Another nodded. "She has the papers." I saw them. A third voice joined. "This is a medical child. Pressure built, soft but growing, like water behind a dam." Paige's eyes hardened. "This aircraft cannot depart until she complies." But before Evelyn could answer, a voice at the aircraft door cut through everything. Deep, calm, authoritative. "What situation is preventing departure?" Evelyn turned slowly. The man from the final moment of the hook, gray suit, tall frame, stepped fully on board. His badge hung at his chest, simple and unmistakable. Jonathan Carter, Chief Executive Officer. Paige froze. Passengers stilled. Evelyn held her son, and the oxygen tank glinted under the sterile cabin light, just inches from the hand that stole it. Jonathan Carter took 3 measured steps down the aisle. Each one landed like judgment in the quiet cabin. He didn't speak first. He simply looked at Evelyn and Noah's shallow breaths, at the oxygen tank still clutched under Paige's arm. His gaze lingered there longest. Passengers watched as if the air itself had paused. Evelyn swallowed, voice fragile but clear. "My son needs that tank." She took it. I tried to show the paperwork. Jonathan's tone remained even, almost gentle. "Paige, explain." Paige straightened, professional composure rigid. "Sir, she boarded with unverified medical equipment. No system record." I followed policy. Jonathan's eyes shifted to the binder under her arm. "You reviewed her documents." Paige hesitated. Just a breath, just enough. They were unclear. Evelyn reached into her bag with trembling hands. "Please, read them. Just read them." Jonathan accepted the papers. He did not skim. He read every line. Medical authorization, equipment certification, email thread with the Special Assistance Department. His brow tightened, not in confusion, but recognition. He looked at Paige. "These are valid." A ripple passed through the cabin. Relief from some, anger from others. Paige's jaw flexed. Then the system failed to note it. "I acted to protect compliance. Safety is my duty." Jonathan's tone softened, but his eyes were sharp. "Safety is your duty, yes? And so is dignity, especially for our most vulnerable passengers." He handed the oxygen tank back to Evelyn himself. Her fingers curled around it like lifeline. She fitted the mask to Noah's face, pulse racing as she watched the color slowly return, faint pink replacing dusky blue. A tremor of breath, then another. His tiny chest lifted, fuller, stronger. Only then did Evelyn realize she was crying. Jonathan faced the passengers. "Thank you for your patience." Then he turned to Paige again. Quiet thunder beneath the words. "A child nearly lost oxygen today. Because paperwork was not read. Because assumptions replaced verification." Paige's lips parted, defense forming, pride bracing. "I was doing my job." Jonathan nodded once. "And now I will do mine." The captain stepped out of the cockpit, alerted by the shift in atmosphere. "Sir, are we cleared to close the cabin?" Jonathan didn't answer immediately. His gaze stayed on Paige, not cruel, but unblinking. She looked suddenly small in the aisle she once commanded. Passengers waited. A woman in row 17 held her husband's hand. Robert's eyes shone with quiet emotion. The silver-haired woman watched with something like hope. Jonathan finally spoke, voice low. This flight will not depart until I finish reviewing this incident personally. Notify operations. Suspend boarding for all outbound aircraft until medical accommodation procedure is reconfirmed. The captain blinked. All outbound, sir. Yes, Jonathan said. Calm. Final. The entire fleet. Gasps whispered through the rows. Paige stared at him. Disbelief, disbelief, then a flicker of fear. Dad. The word slipped before she could catch it. Silence detonated. Passengers exchanged looks. Evelyn blinked. Jonathan's jaw tightened, not at the word, but at the weight behind it. He had not introduced himself as her father. He had introduced himself as CEO. And now that truth hung over them like the sudden stillness before lightning strikes. Jonathan's voice was quiet enough that only those nearest heard. You're my daughter. But today, you're also my employee. A storm was forming. Not loud, not wild. Inevitable. The cabin was still as stone. Paige stood with the oxygen tank no longer in her possession, hands rigid at her sides. Jonathan's presence, calm, level, immovable, filled the aircraft like a second atmosphere. Passengers sensed the shift. This was no longer a customer complaint. Something deeper pulsed beneath it: family, power, responsibility, and the cost of a single unexamined action. Jonathan took one slow breath, as if choosing every word with care. Paige, he said, I'm requesting your version of events. Fully. Not in summary, exactly as they happened. Paige swallowed. Her voice tried for steady, but cracked at the edge. She boarded with a tank I didn't recognize. I didn't see an entry in the system. If something went wrong in the air, that would fall on me. I acted to prevent risk. Jonathan nodded once, encouraging honesty, not shielding her from its weight. And the paperwork. I skimmed it, Paige admitted. But equipment paperwork is easy to forge. I've seen it happen. I thought. Her voice faltered. I thought I was protecting the aircraft. Jonathan's answer came gently, but firmly. You were protecting the aircraft, but you did not protect the passenger. The sentence struck deeper than reprimand. It was truth neither could step around. He angled himself toward the passengers, raising his voice by only a degree. I want each of you to know, no one will be punished for speaking up. If you witnessed anything you believe noteworthy, your voices are welcome. Hands rose slowly. Robert Mason first. She showed the paperwork. She wasn't loud, just scared. The silver-haired woman followed. That baby was losing color. We all saw it. One by one, quiet affirmations threaded through the cabin. Not anger, but testimony. Respectful. Earnest. Unavoidable. Paige's eyes glimmered, not with stubbornness now, but something closer to realization. She looked at Noah, breathing more evenly. Then at Evelyn, who held her son with a mixture of relief and trembling strength. For the first time, regret flickered across Paige's face. Jonathan stepped closer to his daughter, neither shielding nor shaming her, just present. We are measured not by rules we enforce, he said softly, but by people we serve while enforcing them. The words hit her like a mirror she could not look away from. He placed a tablet in her hand, company policy manuals glowing on the screen. I want you to read our medical compliance section aloud. Not for punishment. For clarity. Her throat moved as she swallowed. Yes, sir. She began, quiet at first, then steadier. Crew must review passenger documentation when presented. Any ambiguity must favor accommodation until medical review is completed. No life-supporting device may be removed unless verified unsafe. Each line felt heavier than the one before. Evelyn listened, heart pounding, not because she wanted Paige punished, but because she needed someone to finally acknowledge what almost happened. What nearly cost her child his breath. Paige finished the final line, her voice small. I should have read it. I should have checked. Jonathan nodded once. That is the beginning of accountability. Paige looked to Evelyn now, not as gatekeeper, not as authority, but as one human being to another. I was wrong, she whispered. I'm sorry. Evelyn held Noah closer. I just needed someone to listen. Jonathan stepped back, gaze sweeping the cabin. This flight will continue, And before we move another inch, we will put in place a safety measure to ensure no parent ever faces this again. Passengers leaned forward, sensing what was coming. The twist wasn't that Paige was the CEO's daughter. The twist was what Jonathan would do next, not to punish, but to transform the entire system. Jonathan stepped into the aisle fully, posture strong yet composed. The engines outside hummed, but inside the cabin you could hear nothing except the quiet of anticipation. He held the policy folder in one hand, the weight of leadership in the other. To every person here, he said gently, you witnessed a moment that should never have happened. A baby's breath is not a negotiable policy. It is the baseline of humanity. No dramatics. No raised voice. His calm made the emotion heavier. He turned to the captain. Prepare a cabin announcement. I will speak before this aircraft leaves the ground. Paige blinked, startled. Dad, you're going to broadcast this? Jonathan didn't hesitate. Transparency is our foundation. If we hide mistakes, we repeat them. He moved toward the intercom. The captain stepped aside without question. Jonathan lifted the handset, pressed the button, and his voice echoed through the aircraft and into the gate area beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jonathan Carter. Before we depart, we are implementing an immediate procedural change across our fleet. No medical device will be removed from a passenger without documented review by 2 staff members, including a supervisor and confirmation from the medical assistance desk. If verification cannot be completed, we will default to accommodation, not denial. A soft gasp passed through the rows. Admiration, relief, the kind of sound people make when justice finds form. He continued, voice steady, this policy will be recorded, implemented, and audited beginning today. I will personally oversee its rollout. Until these steps are completed, all scheduled departures will be delayed. Passenger safety is our priority above schedules and margins. Paige swallowed, eyes shining with a mix of shame and unexpected respect. You're grounding the fleet for this one incident? Jonathan looked at her with a father's steadiness and a CEO's resolve. No, I'm grounding the fleet to prevent the next one. It was the moment no one expected, not discipline, but reform. Accountability is protection. Leadership through vulnerability. Passengers sat straighter. Someone whispered, good. Another murmured, finally someone who listens. Evelyn felt tears rise, not sorrow now, but release. Jonathan turned to her, voice lowered so only nearby passengers heard. I'm sorry this happened on my aircraft, he said. You did everything right. Evelyn shook her head, voice trembling. I just wanted him safe. That's all any parent wants. Jonathan nodded. And he will be. From this day forward, no parent bringing life-sustaining equipment will face this alone. Paige stepped closer, hands clasped like someone learning humility in real time. Ms. Brooks, she said quietly, I'll sit beside you for takeoff. I'll help monitor Noah's breathing, if you'll allow it. The offer surprised everyone, including herself. Evelyn studied her face. Not defiance now, but earnestness. The beginning of growth. You may, she said softly. Jonathan's voice carried once more as he handed the oxygen tank gently into Evelyn's grip. Third time the signature object appeared, final and sacred. This cabin will fly only when compassion flies with it. The engines outside surged. Crew exchanged glances. Hope rose like altitude before ascent. The entire fleet was grounded for change, and this single flight would become the one that lifted them all. The aircraft door finally closed with a pressurized thump. Not hurried, not routine, deliberate. The shift in atmosphere was unmistakable. People weren't just passengers anymore. They were witnesses, participants in something larger than a delayed departure. Evelyn adjusted Noah's oxygen mask, watching color return to his cheeks like sunrise over pale sky. Each breath steadier, each moment a step back from the brink. Paige sat beside her as promised. Not towering, not guarding. Sitting, hands folded, posture careful, humility settling like new gravity. She glanced at Noah more than once, as if fearing to lose sight of the lesson written in his breathing. Robert leaned across the aisle. Looks better already, he said softly. Evelyn offered a grateful nod. Yes, thank you for speaking up. Across the cabin, quiet conversation stirred, each threaded with reflection. We didn't know. I thought someone else would say something. I'm glad we saw it before it was too late. The captain made final safety calls. Engines spooled. The aircraft pushed back from the gate, not triumphant, but transformed. As they climbed through the clouds, Paige broke her silence. I became a flight attendant to protect people, she said, voice low, raw. I didn't think I could make one mistake that mattered this much. Evelyn looked at her, not unkindly. No one wakes up planning to hurt someone. We just forget to see. Paige exhaled, like the truth cost air to release. I used to rush decisions. I liked speed. Authority felt like control. She paused, eyes following Noah's small movements. But today I learned authority without listening is just power. And power without compassion is blind. Evelyn listened, surprised by the sincerity. Robert leaned in. You owned it. That counts. Paige nodded. I'll spend every shift remembering his face. She hesitated. If you'd let me, I'd like to help you through the flight, monitor his oxygen, fetch what you need. Evelyn considered her, no longer adversary, but woman facing her own reflection for the first time. You may help. Simple. Clear. Grace given, not cheaply, but carefully. Halfway through the flight, turbulence brushed the wings. Seat belts clicked. Paige steadied a water cup beside Evelyn's armrest. Jonathan stood near the galley, tablet open, writing the new procedure word by word, commitment not theoretical but operational. Tight language. Clear safeguards. No loopholes. A flight attendant whispered to him, unsure. Sir, will grounding the fleet create backlash? Jonathan replied without looking up. If backlash is the cost of a child's right to breathe, I pay it gladly. It wasn't grandstanding. It was fact. A passenger 2 rows back recorded a small clip. Not the confrontation, not the tears. Just Jonathan drafting policy while a mother fed her child oxygen. The caption simple. This is what leadership should look like. It quietly climbed views by the time wheels touched Charlotte's soil. No cheering. No applause. Just a deep exhale from every person on board, as if the entire cabin had been holding breath alongside Noah. As the plane taxied to the gate, Paige spoke one more time. Ms. Brooks, I can't undo what I did, but I can change what I do next. Evelyn held Noah close, his tiny breaths warm against her collarbone. That's how change begins, she said gently. One choice at a time. The seatbelt sign chimed off, and somewhere inside each witness, something had shifted permanently. Charlotte's sunlight spilled through the jet bridge windows like a benediction. Passengers filed out slowly, not impatient, but thoughtful. Each step a small echo of the flight none of them would forget. Evelyn waited until the aisle cleared. Noah slept in the sling across her chest, color warm and healthy now. His breaths were soft clouds against her shoulder. Every rise of his tiny chest felt like proof, a persistence, a voice, of the simple power of being heard. Paige remained beside her, carrying the oxygen tank this time with both hands, careful as if it were glass. At the door, Jonathan stood waiting. Not as CEO now, as father and leader who understood the weight of command. He gestured to Evelyn with quiet respect. There's medical transport waiting. We arranged a ground escort to the children's clinic, and they're expecting you within the hour. Evelyn blinked, stunned. You arranged that? Jonathan nodded. It's the least we can do. And I meant what I said in the cabin. Your presence changed policy, not because you demanded it, but because you refused to surrender your child's dignity. His words landed gently, like someone placing a blanket over exhausted shoulders. Paige stepped forward, not hiding behind authority this time, but stepping into accountability. Ms. Brooks, Evelyn, if you ever feel comfortable, I'd like to understand more about Noah's condition. I want to learn, so I never make another parent feel the way you felt today. It wasn't request for forgiveness. It was request for growth. Evelyn studied her, really saw her. Not the woman who took the tank, but the woman who carried it back. The woman who read policy aloud. The woman who stayed and watched and learned. She offered a small nod. When we return after his appointment, you can meet us. I'll explain everything I know. Paige exhaled slowly, something between relief and gratitude. Jonathan placed a light hand on his daughter's shoulder. We do better when we know better. A moment of father to child, not discipline, but direction. Outside the aircraft windows, planes remained parked, Fleet grounded by compassion, not crisis. Ground teams moved with purpose. Policies were circulating to inboxes. Supervisors gathering for briefings. A ripple of reform moving immediate, not delayed. Because of one mother. One infant breath. One refusal to be dismissed. At the bottom of the jet bridge, Evelyn paused. The hum of tow tractors, the distant call of baggage carts, the warm Carolina air smelling faintly of jet fuel and spring leaves. All of it felt like promise. She turned once more to Jonathan. "Thank you for listening." He gave a small, respectful bow of the head. "You reminded us why we fly people, not planes." It was not praise to her. It was remembrance for everyone. Robert passed by with his carry-on, tipping his cap. "You two take care of that miracle boy." The silver-haired woman squeezed Evelyn's hand as she moved past. "I'll never board a flight the same way again." None of them would. As Evelyn stepped into the terminal, sunlight caught the oxygen tank at her side, a glint like a final punctuation. Signature object seen for the last time. She breathed deeply, matching her rhythm to Noah's. Slow, even, possible. Today broke something open in the world, not through anger, but through insistence on humanity. And Evelyn, tired, hopeful, steady, walked forward into the next chapter. 3 months later, spring warmed Dallas with soft breezes and early magnolia blooms. Evelyn stood outside a modest nursing clinic near the children's hospital. Noah balanced on her hip, rounder now, stronger, cheeks flushed with healthy color. He watched wind move across the treetops, fascinated by every tremble of leaf and light. His breathing was steady, natural. No tubes, no mask. Every inhale felt like grace. Behind Evelyn, automatic doors slid open with a hush. Paige stepped out wearing a simple navy uniform. But there was something different, calmer posture, gentler presence, eyes that had learned to linger instead of judge. She carried a slim binder under one arm, medical accommodation and passenger dignity training, revised implementation. It bore her name on the cover as co-author. When she reached Evelyn, she didn't rush into apology or explanation. She simply stood there, letting the quiet speak first. "You came," Evelyn said softly. "I promised," Paige replied. She glanced at Noah, who studied her with curious eyes. No memory of the day she took his breath, only the present moment she now approached with humility. Paige smiled, small but genuine. "He's grown. He loves the sunlight," Evelyn whispered. "A few months ago, I wasn't sure he'd get to." They walked slowly toward a bench near young oak trees. The afternoon was peaceful. No engines, no announcements, no ticking clocks. Just two women who had once stood on opposite sides of fear, sitting now side by side. "I've completed medical training," Paige said quietly. "Not company required, personal choice." She rested the binder on her lap. "I meet parents every week now. I read every document they hand me. Every single one." Evelyn nodded, moved. "Thank you for making sure no one else stands alone the way we did." Paige exhaled, voice thoughtful. "You taught me something that day. Authority means nothing if compassion isn't standing beside it." No bitterness lingered between them. Only memory, growth, and a thin thread of new respect. Across town, the airline trained its final class under the new policy. Compliance offices hung framed copies of the procedure Jonathan had written mid-flight. A small plaque beneath it read, "In honor of one mother who refused to surrender her child's breath." Jonathan visited occasionally, quietly, without announcement. He observed instructors reviewing oxygen protocols, verifying documentation, teaching staff not only to review but to listen. He never spoke of grounding the fleet with pride, only with the certainty that it had been necessary. The world never heard the whole story. Headlines faded. Flights resumed. But inside the walls of that company, something permanent lived, a standard written not in ink, but in empathy. Back on the bench, Noah reached toward Paige's sleeve with tiny fingers. She let him hold it, gentle, attentive. Once she had taken something from him. Now she offered presence, patience, attention. Growth is not always loud. Sometimes it breathes quietly. A soft breeze moved around them. Evelyn lifted the small portable case at her side. Not an oxygen tank anymore, just a reminder she still carried once. She touched it lightly, grateful not to need it. 3 months changed everything. A child could breathe. A mother could rest. A woman could learn. and compassion could fly higher than any altitude printed on a ticket. And thanks for watching. Description is almost equal to 120,200 words.